I get it sometimes, from time to time. I've abused my back, for sure in life. Stupidity. Right. Yeah. 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 And I danced before that. Hello. That did it too. Right. Wow. That's why I have to get back in shape. Well, I stayed in Great Neck. Yeah, so this morning I got up to come back, and and I don't have a good mattress there yet. I still still have the old mattress, so get there. And I'm getting old. Ow! Oh!
Dominic said he saw you the other day.
He did, and he didn't say hello. You know Dominic from Peconic Landing. Dominic, did he? We spoke. No, I haven't seen him in maybe a couple of 3 months. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm in pain. But pain is the entrance to prayer. Is the vestibule one of the vestibules? I would say the best vestibule is to come out of love, which actually you're totally satiated, you're comfortable, there's no pain, and you go to church. Should I should say something. Careful, why? Of course. Every time you enter a house of prayer, you take a risk. Heschel, Rabbi Heschel, said that, and he wrote it in the 50s, and he said the problem today is that people come to synagogue expecting not to be transformed. Like, leave me alone. I'm going to be an audience. You do a chazanut, and you sing, you perform, and you redeem me vicariously. I'll be a spectator. But this is an interesting. Until we're waiting for Didi to come. What is so? But so, how do you explain the Christian notion of vicariousness, that you can redeem someone else? We don't have that. I don't know if we have that. We have it with the animals that they expatiate. What? That's what I mean. It's the only example, and of course the sacrifices that stem from that. Yes, but it's where you're putting your sins right into the. So I guess the only difference would be that it's an animal versus human sacrifice. Yeah, we share this notion. Yeah, we share the notion that it's not about, oh, I'm going to die. No, I'm not going to die. I'm going to go all the way. It's a big difference. All the way can be, okay, at the end I will survive, but I will go all the way versus I'm going to die. Yes, we're totally. So you're saying that his death, theologically speaking, is an exclamation point to the worshipers? Pay attention. If he hadn't died, we wouldn't have had all this drama. Good Friday is the crucifixion, Sunday is the resurrection. Without the resurrection. Ah, okay. Thank you. This is amazing. This is what I love about this, because now I understand. I see a reflection in our, teaching, is that leaving Egypt was meaningless if it weren't to pursue God, which means that running from is never enough. You have to run to something. So that's beautiful. So we are now counting the Omer. right? The 49 days between Passover and Shavuot. So this is exactly where we're at. We're on the 18th day from out of the 49, and these are 49 steps that we're climbing from the bottom, slavery, to ultimate freedom, which is receiving the law. So, and they are connected, which means the Passover and Shavuot, when we receive the Torah, are connected again for the same reason. So you count, and actually, one of the opinions in halacha in the Jewish law is that if you miss one day of counting of the 49, it's gone. That connection is gone. So there are different opinions that if you missed a counting, you can still pick up where you are, but without a blessing. So either way, you're lacking something. It's not the same connection. You can't double up on that definitely. That's actually why can't you double up on the date? And there's actually a very famous expression. If the sacrifice passed on the time of the sacrifice, then it's gone. You can't really uh, make up a sacrifice. It says avar zmano batel korbanot. If the time is up, that's it. And the reason is that to teach us about time, the importance of time, and that time does not come back. Or we live in cycles, but history doesn't repeat itself, but it runs. And we believe that's so that absolutely. And what was the first commandment that God gave the Jewish people, the Israelites, when they left Egypt? That was the first thing. Watch your ass. That's first. And right after is watch the time. The time is the first commandment that the Jewish people received as a people, not as so when they left, because we don't consider anything that they were told to do in Egypt as a commandment by itself, because they were slaves first. So slaves are not obligated in commandments. It's a free person to fulfill a commandment. But leaving that aside, um, they the experience of leaving Egypt, right? That's what we're talking about. The connection, right? If you don't fulfill one day, so if the mindset is that one day you die, how do so you can't really broken. If you look at it as stairs that people look at it, also if you missed a step, you can't double up. But if you look at it as it says 7 whole weeks, right? So if you look at it as weeks, then if you miss, let's say, a day in the week, all kinds of ways to do that. But the point is to remember that connection between Passover and Shavuot. The leaving Egypt is not enough if you're not pursuing the law. Yeah, and you don't want to go back. We have a commandment not to go back to Egypt. Don't slide back down, which means that if you and I've heard several talks, TED talks, and other lectures by successful people who say, how do you really succeed in life is if you take it one step at a time. You can, of course, you can succeed. Um, if you're lucky or whatever. But even if you succeed and you jump up, I've seen it, in my own experience in life and my family and other people that succeed immediately, and then they're in shock, and then they can slide back and maybe further down. So the point is to really create a system of taking it one step at a time. So we start with the Seder. The Seder means order. We start there, and then we continue to receiving the Torah. Wow, Don, is that yours? Is that something a pope would say?
No.
You don't. You're a disgruntled Catholic? Really? Oh, just because of this particular pope? Oh, good. So he's not qualified to. We forget the wrong wall. Absolutely. Yep. So we come to our topic today, which is very fascinating topic, which is the tefillin. The tefillin. We'll study about the tefillin. Today. Did you leave? No, I told you about this. We had an amazing event. The full house. It was 80 people. And something. So our member Rena Wiseman talked about her father's surviving a concentration work camp between the ages of 14 and 19 for 5 years, and how he survived with the tefillin that his parents originally sent him because they thought, okay, that's a work camp, it's going to finish, or come back. Because and the evidence to that is that they sent him the biggest tefillin you can imagine. I've never seen the biggest tefillin. And then she showed the tefillin. It was amazing. It was really very emotional. Uh, yeah, so remember her father. She's thinking to donate it to a museum, and I don't know. I suggested to her maybe keep it as long as she can in the family with a story like that. That's amazing. So tefillin, actually, even their name means little prayer, because the word for prayer is tefillah. I don't know if you can read Hebrew a little bit or recognize Hebrew. That my prayer, hatfilah sheli, my prayer. So tefillah in Hebrew, that's the prayer. So tefillin are really what it says is small prayer. That's basically what it says. So first we'll have to look at what are the prayers and then talk about their meaning. We'll read them and talk about the meaning. So I actually let's start with the Siddur here because uh, two of those sections are in the Shema, and then we will look for the third one. And that's how we actually, the rabbis, learn about the tefillin. So before we even look at what inside the tefillin, we'll look at where do we even. So this is the Shema, and we say the Shema twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. So this is the morning one. We say the evening one Friday night. But the content is the same. These are three paragraphs from the Torah, from the scripture. So what we'll do is we'll look at the Siddur first, how it comes into use through the tefillin, and then we'll look at the context in the Torah. So page 112, it says, "Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai Elohim." That is the title to the Shema. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. So this is theologically speaking, not practically speaking. I would say practically speaking, the verse that you want to know that summarizes all scripture is, you want to guess? what is the most important, or the verse that diffuses everything, not diffuses, but actually infuses everything in the Torah. Right? And the Talmud says, don't do upon others. So that is socially, practically what we need to arrive. But theologically, what summarizes Judaism is Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel. So hearing something, right? Remember that. Hear, O Israel, because it could be said, see Israel. Right? But hear, O Israel, we'll talk about the difference also. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God. Adonai is the tetragrammaton, the four-letter name of God. But it says Adonai Eloheinu. Adonai Eloheinu, God. Adonai is our God. And why is that important? Because these are the two sides of God. Adonai is the merciful side, and Eloheinu, Elohim, is the master, the king. So when we say on Yom Kippur, our Father, our King, right, our King, our Father, right, Avinu, our Father, our King, these are the two sides of Adonai and Elohim. So we have these two sides, God and Adonai alone. Adonai. So the unity of God, which is very important. Mm-hmm. Right. So when you do text criticism, you say that was the God of the Judah and the one of the Israel. But if you really want to step away from the idol worshiping explanation, because if once you split a God, it's idol worshiping. That's why um, Judaism has a theological problem with Christianity, but not with Islam, because Christianity, so to speak, split God, said God is a Trinity, and that's where Judaism can't go, and that is because this is the premise, this is the title. I always refer to this Seinfeld when he was making fun of one of other comedians, and she came to his show. He was kind of making fun of her somehow, so she created a whole show calling the title of the show was Jerry Seinfeld is the Devil, and that was her show. And then he came to see the show, and after the show, he talks to her, and he said to her, I liked your show, but why did you have to use so many times, Jerry Seinfeld is the devil? And she looked at him and she said, well, this is the title, right? So I always love it because this is the title, I was asked one time, believe it or not, to use the name of God less, not to use so much
In English or?
in whatever. I don't think that was the problem. Right. No, that was it was, yeah. And I remember looking at her and just thinking about that episode. It's like this is the title. So the title of the Jewish people is this, right? Now, why Shema? Why not see? Why? Because Shema, you can hear for somebody else, but you can hear from a phone. But if you are not there, you can't see for somebody else. You can kind of hear for somebody else. The interplay between the two words. very important conversation in theology because it it refers to the immanence of God and the transcendence of God. The transcendence is that God can transcend the material, right? That really seeing it it has to be there, right? And hearing is the oral Torah, is the oral that you transfer to the other, to the next generation. And that we can only say, as I was leaving Egypt, right? I understand. As I left Egypt. Like, we didn't leave Egypt. But you didn't leave Egypt. So, but hearing, and really, if you think about it, you don't live the written Torah. The written Torah is the seed. Hearing is the oral. You can hear, somebody else can teach you. Seeing is, in this context, secondary to hearing. Because hearing is what we really practice. We practice, right? So we practice the relationship. And the relationship with the text is what our rabbis told us. The relationship. We live oral Torah. We live the hearing. So that is the connection and the survival of the Jewish people, is that we give it to the next generation. Right? So Shema, Israel, by Israel, and not Jacob or Jeshurun. Jacob had three names. Israel was just one of them. Why not use Shema Jacob? Listen, Jacob, because actually Jacob means the difference between Jacob and Israel is that Jacob is a follower, Israel, right, is a leader. And that's the transformation that Jacob had in his own life. So it's talking to the minister. It's not talking to the downtrodden. I know, but the Midrash says that this was the spring that the sons of Jacob, the children of Jacob, told him around his bed before he died in Egypt. Because what was his concern? His concern was that just like his dad and his father, they both had a child, an offspring, that they did not approve of, or that did not merit the birthright. Right? That was the battle between Jacob and Esau. He was afraid that one of those children that are surrounding his bed now, that are in Goshen, that could easily corrupt them, that one of them is a weak link, right? That they won't hold on to the oneness of God. We'll talk about the oneness. What is the importance of the oneness? And I'm just giving you a heads up. It's not even theological, the oneness. You're thinking, I'm leading you towards the theological. It's not even theological, I would say, and I could, of course, back it up, and well, that's what that it's physical. It's actually physical, because at the end of the Torah is a guidebook for life. God, right? If you, of course, believe in this, that God gave us somehow this wisdom through whatever not to us. The point of this is that parents giving a child, right, a sort of a trust fund that whenever you need guidance, you can refer to. That's amazing. This is when I first started learning and understanding inheritance, and nobody told me. Right? So again, we're going back to, so this is the answer they told him. Hear, O Israel, our father Israel, but they use his name as the minister. God is ours. That we get it. We get the oneness. The next step is to understand, to try to explain through the tefillin. So what we do now is let's read the verses. We also context. Before we start, one more thing. If you look at the letters in Hebrew, there are two letters that are larger than the other, right? The Ayin and the Aleph. The last letter, and the last letter, these two letters form two words in one basically combination, Ayin and Aleph, but that could be interpreted in two ways. One is Ed. Ed means a witness, which means that you always have to stay a true witness to life, to creation, to God. And then the second one, if you are a true witness, and really what Judaism does is trying to witness God's creation authentically, be a true witness through the seasons, and our whole calendar is all about creation, seasons of creation. And if you do that, if you may agree with it or not, think it's hard, think it's whatever it is, but if you follow this prescription, you will get to have the eternal life that was lost in the garden. This is the tree of life. You will get eternity. Ad means eternity. Why? Because if you are witnessing God and holding on to God and to truth, then your next generation, of course, will buy into it, because generations are not stupid as much as we want to think they are. They know what's going on, and if you're not okay, I speak to my nieces and nephews and this is the most important thing, is that they practice first. Not you're not. So if you're holding it to it and you're a true witness, then you will have continuity and you will have spiritual life. Yeah. So my personal belief put aside, there are a few schools of thought. One is that there was an experience of revelation in a mountain, on a mountain, that wasn't necessarily the highest mountain, but heaven and earth came as close as possible. And we call it communion. The heaven moment. It's a tricky word, right? Because Christian use communion for the means the same. That heaven and earth. However, Christianity takes the idea of communion Judaism a step further that we can to say full union. And that's where Judaism and Christianity are. So, but according to Judaism, there was a communion moment, like the sealing of the almost touching, because heaven and earth can't really touch. That is a Jewish theology. God cannot become flesh, because how can you contain infinity in a finite container. That's basically the argument. But I would say, after studying Christianity now for several years and understanding more, I would say that's not even the point because we don't even know what God can. After I took this whole course at YU, the polemics in the Middle Ages, Judaism, and it went down to the level of that if nothing else, the Jews agreed that Mary could have been a virgin before and after the birth. But during the birth, impossible. And talking about hymens and like, and I came out of that and said, you know what? I think that, again, I wasn't in the shoes and their context, God permit me to judge them. They were forced to argue. They weren't even free not to argue. But if I were, in their shoes, maybe, say, you know what? And that's what I said to my professor. As a believing Jew, I can't honestly say what God can and cannot do. So if you expect me as a Jew to subscribe to the Jewish theology that says that created and he's how do you want to start describing what God can and cannot do? I can only say I don't know that, or it's not my to say and to argue logically about something that is not very. That's the mystery. Christianity will say this is the mystery, and we would say we have our own mysteries.
And the word
I understand it today. I did used to think that it was a common, but certain things you simply cannot explain. It doesn't mean that they don't have an explanation. Exactly. So we have those also in Jewish tradition, and of course the most famous one is Elijah, that we wait for him in every occasion because he was the one that didn't die. So he did the reverse commute, right, from heaven to earth, and well, actually, not even reverse. They did the same commute. You would say no, because Jesus came back, and Elijah went up, right, from earth to heaven. Jesus to heaven to earth.
But I think this is what the emanation
Mm-hmm.
and then the more
Yeah. So we'll summarize that, and then we'll go to the reading. The mystery is always when how can two opposing elements coexist? That's always the mystery. Every it's that paragraph. So we always finish every prayer. Say shalom b'mormav. Creates peace in his heaven. Will create peace. And Rash says, what is this referring to? Referring to the fact that in heaven, God somehow can have water and fire together coexist. We're referring to rain and the thunder, the lightning,
and
right?
that's the other distinction.
But Judaism is the same.
Well, but all I'm saying is people
And actually, this is tefillin teaches us how to live with it. It's one for the head and one for the arm, and we'll get to it. So, and what's the title of the whole Quran? Text is that it's basically the first line usually is the title. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. Already contradiction. You have to take this as your life. Otherwise, your life will be a living hell. Right? So if you want to just at least not go crazy, not you have to know. Okay, so let's read those three paragraphs and try to explain them, and also, of course, why we learn the tefillin from them. So I'll read it because actually Andrea said that because the microphone here, if I don't read it, they won't hear it that well. The recording. Yeah. So we're recording. You know where you're recorded? Oh, okay. Is it okay? You didn't say anything until now. Yes.
Yeah, but I.
So Don spoke for both of you. So okay. So I'll read it. So the first one, the first word is be'ahavta. The first word that we need to put on our arm and on our head is ahava. Love in Hebrew means to give. So if you don't get up in the morning and say, okay, what is owed to me today? Have exactly the opposite thought. And we do that. The first thing we I thank you. So first you give. So ve'ahavta. So and then what do you give? You give in everything. You give Shalom Adonai, your God, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. So it's referring to mental, physical, financial means, any means you have. And these words, which I command you this day, you shall take to heart. Teach them diligently to your children and recite them at home and away, night and day. Bind them as a sign upon your hand and as a reminder above your eyes. Inscribe them upon the doorposts of your homes and upon your. Okay? So already, right, the Deuteronomy 11. So we start with this text. This is the beginning. This is before the filling, right? The tefillin came after this text. So the rabbis read the text. So it says to bind them as a sign upon your hand and as a reminder above your eyes. Okay, so let's now figure out what to do. So, a sign. So they came up with these boxes, right, of leather. Um, and inside of them, they put the parchment. So, how did they get that? How did they get that they need parchment? So, signs in Hebrew is the same as otiyot, which means that the letters are the signs. So then they started looking for the letters, right? And this is the rationale, not just for the tefillin, pretty much for every practice in Judaism. We start with the primary source, and then we lift it up into the Shema, right? Because I can find this book, and even if I knew how to read the letters, right? Many, I know American Jews that know how to read the letters because they went to, but then they don't know what it means. Somebody has to tell them what it means, right? And somebody even told them how to read those letters and how to recognize them. So the point is that you have to bring it to the oral, to the Shema. So it's connected to that, but then it becomes practical. Okay, let's start just asking the questions that they may have faced, right? Because they received the Torah Shebe'al Peh, the oral tradition, together with the written tradition. That's one of the opinions, that Moses received the oral and the written together, as is, right? And there's a whole discussion in the Talmud about who wrote only the last 8 verses of the Torah. Why? Because the last 8 verses talk about Moses dying. So how can Moses write it? Right? If God dictated to him. Others say that it was inspirational, that God inspired these words. And there wasn't really a mountain necessarily. Maybe it was a public event, maybe it was. But for the authenticity in Judaism, you have to have it recalled as a public event. Because there's always a problem with transferring tradition if it came behind a tree, and nobody saw, nobody, here we're talking about an event that, at least according to the sources, was of at least 2 million people. So, there were a lot of witnesses. For example, there's another, what's the place in Europe that people go there a lot? There was a revelation, Fatima. So Fatima, Muhammad, but there was a revelation there, right, to 3 kids, and then everybody came back, right, to see it, and there was a revelation, right, and that's why it's drawing so many people, because they know all these people that were there, right, hundreds of thousands of people saw this, whatever sight they saw. So the revelation, I would say, not I would say, but I subscribe, of course, to that school of thought, that it has to be a public, in Judaism. In other religions, but for Judaism, the public revelation is ingrained in the revelation itself. It wouldn't be a revelation without. So, because how do you ask someone to transmit something they have not witnessed themselves? The first generation had to see it, transmit it. And we also say, how do we know that there's also in actual halakha, Jewish law about this, that the first exit or exodus from Egypt, or the Seder, the last Seder in Egypt, or the first Seder in Egypt, however you want to call it, but that meal they had in Egypt, in the event itself, 3,500 years ago, has a totally different approach to it in halakha. We're not required to do it. So there's totally different a concept. So it's the same idea. The first generation, but from that point on, it became a shema, a transmitting of a relation of a tradition. So it says here that you have to transmit it all the time, right? So they required a daily, at least a daily practice. Some people that want to be very holy, they wear these all day long. They walk around with the feeling all day. You imagine? It's amazing. But there are people who do that. The only time they take them off, of course, is when they go to the bathroom or shower and all that. And I've been with people in Israel, Jerusalem, that wore it all day long.
Do you think
No. They read this paragraph saying, it does say, um, all day long, right? Teach them diligently. Whatever you do, right? Uh, However you understand this verse and make it practical, it'll have to include all these ideas. And the major idea is that teach them diligently to your children and recite them at home and away, night and day. Bind them as a sign upon your hands. So you have to make, for bottom line, it has to become your second nature. That's what it is. And why in Judaism we take a leather, part leather, the whole thing is leather, and then the leather, the parchment is leather also, and we write the word of God on it. It's an analogy to our body. We are flesh, right? We're the difference between the just the flesh or just the skin of a cow and the Torah scroll is exactly the heaven and earth. It's taking the most earthly, but once you write the word of God on it, you make it your second nature, then you elevate yourself all the way. And that's what we're supposed to do. So these are all symbols of how to do that. But at the end of the day, the gates that we're talking about, inscribe them upon the doorposts of your homes and upon your gates, of course, on one level, we understand there's the mezuzah, right? That they put the blood on the doorpost, and we have the mezuzah. And again, it's a hard thing, right? Those words, we'll talk about it. But when you also understand it on a spiritual level, it is the gates of our body. The doorposts and gates of our body. So if someone says, you know, talking about I don't know, the Prime Minister of Australia, I'm going to say, you know what? I don't know the Prime Minister, but I don't know that he or she is correct. Yeah, but in this case, right. I was talking metaphorically, but yeah. So, and she is? Okay. So I don't know that. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. So, you let your ear be a gate, right? Your mouth be a gate. So you become that whole idea of writing the word of God on the flesh. So, okay. So then these two, the hand and the head, that the rabbis understood and created them. Why hand and head? Heart and head, mind. So it is the theoretical, right, or non-practical and practical. That's how I would always divide it. Instead of saying spiritual and physical, because that's tricky. Because maybe physical is not necessarily the opposite of all that. But you can definitely say practical and not practical, or physical and not physical. So the hand is clearly physical. So the hand is a box that has one contiguous box, right? The head, if you look closely, we can pass it around, has four compartments, four separate compartments. And really, this is the secret to the tefillin. It's the head and the head, of course, so it's practical and non-practical. But this is the sign that when you look at it, it reminds you of it. What does it remind you of? That when you talk about the head, the spiritual, the mental, the contemplation, it goes all the way. It goes four directions. You can go up, down, east, west. But when it comes to practicality, there's an expression. You can only put your tuches in one place. You know that you can only sit in one place, right? So we have to decide. You have to make tough choices. And I always explain the circumcision that we start with the circumcision for physical for boys, but it's for the Jewish people. It's the covenant, the beginning of the covenant. And what does that mean? You have to learn how to cut. more, I understand that. Because at a certain point, even in the right, you have to, right, you have to cut the, what we say in Hebrew, is lo tzedek. It's to literally cut justice. Because if you make it and you drag it and you drag it, that, yeah, I've heard that there's a crew of women coming. We may need more. Oh, they came actually at not a bad point class. Because now we'll look at the paragraphs and so on. Yes, that's all right. I can edit it out. And maybe Don, do you want to? Do you have any comment on this before we go to the next level? Yeah. Well, I'm sorry I can't get up even. Ow. But I did see Carmine at Peconic Landing. I went with a family that may go to therapy there. Carmine. Yes. Oh, yeah. What are you like? 85. I'm trying to get up so they don't seem like I want to greet them. I have no idea who am I greeting. Ah, that could be the bird. Oh, do your bird. I keep telling you that we should do Shabbatonim, like to have people come for Shabbat, to set up, like bring a scholar in residence. And of course, that would be fantastic. With the hotels that are now being built here, we should have some, but they're so expensive. Like $600 a night. Man. Which means that if I have a guest, I have to charge them $300 a night. Right. So, what do you think about that law of restricting the rentals? Yeah, yeah. You like it for the residents? Yeah, because they need people to go around and enforce it. But they can enforce it through your maybe the taxes if you report it. Right. If you don't, then they can't. But if, like insurance wise, you would have to. Don't you have to like declare that people are there? Yeah. But you can always, I guess, work backwards and say, oh, well, they were there, but there weren't people, a month before or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Oh, so she's giving them the tour now? All right. Um, but we'll wait a minute, maybe a couple of minutes. Because I want to just read the paragraphs of the Shema, the Shema and the Tefillin are mostly overlapping. They would wear it. Well, they go to sleep. You don't all day, all the waking hours. That possible. They wouldn't put it before they, wash their face, um, and then of course when they. So, but most of the day. And I think I've seen it with people who study all day. So maybe it's easier to have the tefillin when you study all day. But then when they went outside, they left the tefillin on. So maybe there's some people who work with them all day too. Some people, when they do the matzahs, they wear them. So it's somehow. So these are considered the conductors to plug into heaven. Just like you have the two rung, that's the same thing. It's like we're plugging into heaven. So we're plugging the head and the arm together. So I really do believe that at the end of the day, it is practical because it's telling us at the end of the day, you will have to decide. You have to do something. So, and the other way to look at it is that the at the end of the day, what completes things is the action. If it stays in the realm of just an idea, then it's fragmented. It's not whole. Um, these are boxes, tevot, also like arcs, um, and the beauty of the relationship with God is that we are fragmented, so we can think and plan and try our best, but then God has to seal it for us for the action, because we can't do perfect actions without God's mystery or blessing. So just like in the story of Noah, right, when he built the ark, he went in and then God sealed it on the outside. So to complete it, we have to have that. So now let's look at what verses are written in the Tefillin. So we start with Exodus. So if you go like that, so Exodus 13:1. It's on page Exodus 13:1. It's on page. She's really having fun there. We should ask her to do that all the time. So it's on page 391. And okay, so let's read it. The Lord spoke further to Moses, saying, consecrate to me every firstborn man and beast, and the first issue of every womb among the Israelites is mine. And Moses said to the people, remember this day on which you went free from Egypt, the house of bondage, how the Lord freed you from it with a mighty hand. No leavened bread shall be eaten. You go free on this day. This is the month of Aviv. So when the Lord has brought you into the land of Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, which he swore to your fathers to give you, the land flowing with milk and honey, you shall observe in this month the following practices. And it goes to verse 10. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day there shall be a festival to the Lord. Throughout the 7 days, unleavened bread shall be eaten, low leavened bread shall be found with you, and no leaven shall be found in all your territory. And you shall explain to your son on that day, it is because of what the Lord did for me when I went free from Egypt. And this shall serve you as a sign on your hand and as a reminder of your forehand, in order that the teaching of the Lord may be in your mouth, that with a mighty hand the Lord freed you from Egypt. You shall keep this institution and its set time from year to year. Okay, so this is the first thing we learn, that by saving us from Egypt, God bought us. That we're property, we're now slaves to God. What it means is that we cannot be unslaved. The prophecy to God, to Abraham, was that his children, his grandchildren, the generations will be enslaved for 400 years. He worked hard, whatever that was. in order to instill in them slavery. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a prophecy. Why would God want you to be a slave? Because to separate that this is God is programming you, or not programming you, designing you. So the foundations have to be so strong that it has to be in pressured environment. So that you get the idea of being a slave, that there's something above you. So when you leave, you just convert your slavery to man to slavery to God. But it's already built in. So which means that if you're not going to put these on your arms, there will be a void in your life. And that void will be filled with something negative. You have to be proactive about your day. So you have to put this on your arm and your head, otherwise other things will infiltrate. Okay, so so let's read the rest of the paragraph. Then it's 13. No, before we're still in this 13 to 11 to 16. We continue to read there. It's 11 to 16. And when the Lord has brought you to the land of the Canaanite that he swore to you and to your fathers, and has given to you, you shall set apart for the Lord every first issue of the womb, every male firstling that your cattle drops shall be the Lord's. But every firstling as you shall redeem with a sheep. If you do not redeem it, you must break its neck, and you must redeem every firstborn male among your children. And when in time to come your son asks you, saying, what does this mean? You shall say to him, it was with a mighty hand that the Lord brought you out from Egypt, the house of bondage. When Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, the Lord slew every firstborn in the land of Egypt, the firstborn of both man and beast. Therefore I sacrifice to the Lord every first male issue of the womb, but redeem first every firstborn among my sons, and so it shall be as a sign upon your hand. Okay, so that's clear, but continue and a symbol on your forehead that with a mighty hand the Lord freed us from Egypt. Okay, so that's the link to the second paragraph, the second scroll in there. And it follows the same theme of that you, without understanding this message, that you have to keep it all the time, because somebody will always want to take advantage of your freedom, whether through trying to get your money, trying to get your time, trying to get something. You have to be very vigilant in putting those on your doorpost. Okay, then we go to Deuteronomy 6. Deuteronomy 6 is on page 1024. And that's 6:4. That is the Shema. And we read 4 to 9. That's the first paragraph that we just read in the Siddur. 10:24, and I'll read it. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. Or some would say one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. Take to your heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. So this was the second, and this is the third paragraph in the Tefillin, but this is the first paragraph of the Shema, and of course, all that impresses the same message. You let go for a minute, and somebody takes advantage. And more that I mature in life, I understand that. I heard yesterday somebody said, two things you take for granted until you lose them: freedom and health. So, um, you know, so this freedom is not even talking about health so much. It'll talk about in the second paragraph of the Shema. It talks about physical health, but as far as the tefillin, right now, not yet. And then the last paragraph is 11, 12, Deuteronomy 11, 12. Right, right. Tzedek, tzedek tirdof. Justice, justice shall you pursue. You always have to keep open. Absolutely. That's exactly. So, yeah, we're giving our freedom to somebody else. Of course, terrible. So, you have to draw the line somewhere in your life. I drew the line in different places I know in my life. One of them is when I went to Italy, that trip when we did the Amalfi and I met Didi. And the, uh, the car insurance basically wanted me to buy insurance that would protect me in heaven. And I said, you know what? I'm going to leave some chances to God, to protect me. I have the basic insurance, the car, this. They, were proposing something that was like, you know what? I want to travel with God too, to know that I left some place to mystery, you know. So, and then the last paragraph is the second paragraph of the Shema. Now, if you look at the Shema, this is an interesting point to begin with 11:13. Chapter 11, verse 13. But in the Tefillin, it begins actually with verse 12. Why? Because this paragraph is a very harsh paragraph, and the idea is that we don't begin or end on a harsh note. Right? Well, wait a minute for Didi to. She should be the host. Wait to be. It's great. Yeah. Right. Wow, you just gave me an idea. What if you can virtually show apartments and houses at your office, but not through the computer, but like a hologram, or literally somehow that would be above your pay grade. You wouldn't want to be advance that way, and then you don't have to leave your office. And you could probably actually people won't need you. Then they would just go to the computer and do it virtually themselves. Right. That's good. That you can, but you can get a good idea if it's a fairly good suit. Right. 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 Oh, of course. Right. Okay, Didi. Hostess the mostess. Yes. Good. Don't do the Jewish goodbye. So actually, I was going to invite you. San Simeon has the volunteer appreciation. So I said I'm going to go on. Huh? It's just to say hello. I'm not going to stay long. Just to say hello. Just no. You don't like to even walk in there. I know it's not. I don't know why they don't do anything about it. They're in financial trouble. So it's like what? Management is the issue? Wow. Wow. Hello. Oh my goodness, you should totally know. Yeah, no, we were trying to finish by 5:30 and record. I know. She's been here since the 1600s. Made it longer by 2 days, and we reduced one night in Jerusalem. So instead of 5 nights in Jerusalem, since we do one day back and forth to Jerusalem by getting to the Dead Sea, and it's halfway to Eilat anyway, we're going to do 2 nights in Eilat. So 2 nights in Tel Aviv, 2 nights in the Galilee, 4 nights in Jerusalem, and 2 nights in Eilat. You can't beat that. That was Ladan's idea the other day. She's like, why don't we just do a night? And I said, well, we're halfway there actually, and if we do one more day, it's 12 days now. So we're now waiting for a new close. That was one of the things that we're doing. No, we're going to have one Christian and one Jewish prayer book in the package sent. Yeah, and instead maybe of a bag or something like that, maybe what did she suggest? Something more practical. Maybe towels. When we go to the Dead Sea, they can have towels on the bus for us. Bring the towels ourselves. No, you can because they send with their insignia. Yeah, but people I don't use them. I don't use those. But if they would have towels, let's say, with their insignia on the bus, when we're, let's say, in the Dead Sea and we get that, just keep it or people can leave it, whatever. Yeah. Let's conclude the mug. Yes. Mhm. But then if you slip, oh, we're staying in Magdala. In the Galilee, we're staying in Magdala this time. So we're fine. Oh my God! So how have you not been to Israel? Close, but not great. No, you can't beat the archaeological digs in Israel. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, right. Now you came to the conclusion. So the fourth paragraph of the Shema is the Tefillin is the second paragraph of the Shema. So basically, the Tefillin and the Shema overlap with those two. So let's read it because it's a harsh paragraph, and that's why it starts a verse before because they don't want you to start writing on a bad note. So what is it? So page 1052, verse 13. If then you obey the commandments that I enjoin upon you this day, loving the Lord your God and serving him with all your heart and soul, I will grant the rain for your land in season, the early rain and the late rain. You shall gather in your new grain and wine and oil. Um, and oil. I will also provide grass in the fields for your cattle, and thus you shall eat your fill. Take care not to be lured away to serve other gods and to bow to them. For the Lord's anger will flare up against you, and he will shut up the skies so that there will be no rain, and the ground will not yield its produce, and you will soon perish from the good land that the Lord is assigning to you. Therefore, again, impress these words, these my words, upon your very heart, right? So very heart, that's the tefillin of the hand, because you'll see maybe next week we'll look at the practicality of it, but that goes to the heart. And then bind them as a sign on your hand and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead, and teach them to your children, reciting them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up, and inscribe them on the doorposts of your houses and your gates, to the end that you and your children may endure in the land that the Lord swore to your fathers as a sign to them, as long as there is heaven over the earth. That's the so as long as there's heaven over the earth, meaning we start with God created the heaven. So this basically should be forever on your head and your hand, to remind you that your freedom, and for many years Jews couldn't even have the freedom to put the tefillin that symbolized their freedom. Imagine all these in the Holocaust and other places that have to hide the tefillin. That's what it's reminding you. Get up in the morning, put it on your head and on your arm, that there'll be all kinds of things around you, and don't be distracted, and protect your freedom, your being, yourself. That you can leave Egypt, but in order to um, bring God into your life. Thank you.